Good morning. It's January 16th. It's actually a Tuesday. Yesterday was a holiday. Um, some of the things that we worked on last week was a little deflating. We got a couple not too favorable references when we were doing some callbacks and seeing how we did on some projects, which is a little frustrating because both projects that, the one project that we didn't get a favorable reference back on was a project that we felt like we executed really well in the beginning of things, all the way up into until we had to do the startup on it. So which is a little frustrating because it's you work hard to get to a certain point, and then if you don't fully execute out the project, then you look like shit, and people are frustrated, and it literally takes away from the whole back side of the front side of the project where you work so hard to execute. So it's a whole team thing. Even the last person in the process of a closeout of a project can destroy it for everyone that's worked so hard along the way. But when things like that happen, you look in the mirror, you figure out where we came up short, and we grow, and we strive to be better. So we threw, I got a cake last week, and we threw a little bit of a party and talked about everything that we learned from the phone call. Some of the things that I know I'm changing internally is we have a tracking process on how we track projects. Right from the minute someone says we're getting a contract, it goes into a section that's pre-contract. And then it goes into ready for construction, punch list, invoiced, and so on. So everyone in the office along the way kind of touches it as it funnels through our system. But I'm gonna change how, when it's into punch list, we're gonna start changing that into startup to closeout. It's a startup to closeout is a very critical phase in the mechanical industry because it's the moment that the contractor is excited, ready for you to get that unit fired up. And a lot of times their tapers or mutters are waiting for temporary air or heating to get the building a little cooler. And that's the moment where a lot of things can come up. There's a lot of units nowadays that aren't made like they used to. There's way more complicated control systems. There's so many variables that come into play once you actually fire that switch. So it's such a critical part of a construction process for a mechanical company. And I definitely think, or I know, we're gonna start taking way more attention to that process. I've developed a weekly closeout to, or startup to closeout procedure, weekly send out that's gonna go out to every project we have in that phase. So the moment a project hits, it's ready to do a startup, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start sending a weekly email out to that contractor or to that owner, depending on if we're the prime on the project or if we're just the subcontractor. But they're gonna have a weekly email stating where the entire process is. One of the feedback things I got back is just the communication could be better, which communication in construction I feel like can always be better. But I definitely took back everything I've got from that and developed it into this weekly send out where the project management team is going to send out saying, hey, look, here's the startup process. When we did the startup process, this is the checklist that we used. That will be in there. All the air balance information will be in there, and just kind of monitor that whole situation with more of an importance. Hey, this is where we're at. We're at this point, this point, this point. And really starting to push the fact of trying to figure out, making sure, you don't just have one project manager that's kind of pushing along that way. Because a lot of times the general foreman or the foreman of a project, once it gets into a startup phase, will dump it off to the service projects team. The service projects team will start working on the startup. But the service projects team's focused on so many other projects as well. That's not their baby. Like it is for a foreman who's been out there for a set amount of time. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep the foreman in the loop on this weekly tracking sheet and then hold him a little accountable to making sure that the air balance guy, the controls contractor, our own service projects team, and our own project management team is making sure that the whole project is really pushing to get that startup closeout procedures all dialed in and wrapped up. So I'm still working on exactly the weekly email that's going to go out, but what's going to actually build off of that is I built a board called a happy board. And what we're going to do is what we have done is we built a board. It's in the project management side, and it has all the project job numbers. And as soon as a project is ready for a startup closeout, what we're going to do is we're going to put the date in. Great, this project has started the startup closeout procedure, or the weekly section where it kind of falls into that line. Once, we kind of call that almost construction complete. Now we're just doing startup. So once it falls in there, we're going to track the date. We're going to track the date when it closes out, and we're going to be sending out a weekly email. So every time a weekly email goes out, we're going to be tracking those numbers. And then at the end of it, we're going to in that weekly email that goes out, we're going to have a 30-day finish where we've got 30 days of feedback from an owner or an general contractor that the unit has been running for 30 days with no issues whatsoever. And at that moment, we can officially say this project is ready for a closeout. We will mark how many days it took us to get to that point, and then we're going to do a callback on that customer or that general contractor and just kind of get our feedback on how we executed, not only from the start of the project to the startup process to the closeout. So really just putting a little bit more attention to figuring out exactly how can you execute a project from the start of it to the very closeout at it. So sometimes you don't get it right the first time. Most of the time you don't, or I should say most of the time you don't get it right the first time, but that's fine. We never said we're going to be perfect right out the gate, but man, when it comes to anything we're following up short, we're going to sit in here and we're going to grind really hard to figure out how we can change a system to make sure that we're executing the way we want to execute. So just like that's one of the things I'll be working on this week. Just like I end all my videos, do you think you could also find what brings you so much happiness that you could set your alarm for 2:15 a.m. every Monday? Think about it.